Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Power Driven Podcast. Today, sometimes we sit around trying to figure out what we're going to talk about, and we kind of just decided, we started laughing about that. We're going to talk about that today.
You forgot to announce that I'm back, so we can talk about the junker drag truck again.
Oh, there it is. 10 seconds.
That's like record setting. He's like, someone in the comments of the last podcast or one of the last podcasts was like, dude, there's no talk about the junker.
And then, yes, but then John came in clutch on the next one, and he brought it in.
He brought it in, and he said he had to like hold back. Like he wanted to like bust the gut so hard, but he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
He did it. He brought in the junker. He did it. I was like, oh, John, come on.
We were so close.
But anyways, today we are going to talk about turbos. So let's call this Turbo Talk.
Turbo Talk. I always love talking about turbos. I love turbos like for as long as I can remember. In my opinion, it is the best power adder there is. So what is a power adder first and foremost? In the drag racing world, that's like a turbo, nitrous. Anything that adds power beyond naturally aspirated is considered a power adder as far as I'm aware.
So supercharger.
Yeah.
Water methanol injection? No.
Is not? It really wouldn't, because you need the oxygen to burn it. Wouldn't we add power? Really adding power means you're adding oxygen. Kind of is how I understand it.
Yeah.
You're a slave to how much oxygen goes in your motor, so power adders are ways of getting more oxygen in there.
Now, I do love nitrous, and it works very well in the Cummins cart, and it's a great power adder, but it's in a bottle, and it's less, it's limited, it's difficult, where turbo just works off of waste heat, waste energy that your engine has anyway. It's just such a wonderful concept. You're just harnessing energy that you're throwing out the tailpipe.
So just really like basic level, the exhaust comes out of the engine, it spins a turbine wheel, kind of think of like a hydroelectric dam that generates power, spins a big paddle wheel.
Yeah.
And the shaft of that paddle wheel spins an air compressor that compresses air and forces it in. So the exhaust and the air never touch. A lot of people don't understand that.
Why do you want exhaust to go back in your motor? It's not. It's just using the exhaust energy to create energy through the turbine wheel, and that powers a compressor wheel, which takes air from your air filter, sucks it in, compresses it a bunch, and throws in your motor, and you make more power.
A lot of times, like when people see the large turbo on my truck, they think it's two turbos. They see the big turbine housing and the compressor housing, they don't realize that's all one unit.
Mm-hmm.
And so each turbo has like two, they call them snail shells. It looks like a scroll type thing. And so there's an exhaust scroll and an intake scroll. And so that together, two of those make one turbo. So I know this is pretty elementary for a lot of people listening, but I'm surprised how often I get that question like, oh, you got two turbos in here. I'm like, no.
I don't remember who it was. I had to explain like a week and a half ago to someone that like, no, exhaust doesn't go back in your motor. That's not how the turbo works.
Right.
And the other factor with that, because you have extreme heat on the exhaust on one snail or one scroll, and you have air that you're trying to get as cold as possible coming into the engine, you've got to have like some isolation, from the heat. There's got to be a bearing system to support all of that thrusting going on there. So turbos are they're relatively simple, but they're also engineering marvels. There's a lot of forces and stuff going on.
A lot of people don't realize how fast they spin. Like I tell people, and they're just like, no way. Yeah. Factory, like a HX35, slide the plate, do whatever. It's spinning 140,000 RPM.
So your stock turbo spins 120 to 140,000 RPM.
Yeah. Just like freaking wild. It's like
so fast.
It's so hard to like even grasp that. Like in the time it takes to blink, it's just spun 100 times. Like,
yeah, it's wild. And the way it works is it's a centrifugal type compressor where it actually flings the air out into the scroll. The way the scroll is designed is it flings air out. I mean, it literally like throws it out there. It's wild. That's how it works.
It is crazy. It's like
the scroll kind of, converges that air into a nozzle, diffuses it, and that's what becomes the boost or that pressure coming into your engine. It gets hot, natural. Anybody that's worked around air, even air compressor, like if you're a handyman or anybody that's using air compressor, they get hot. When you compress air, it gets hot.
Compressing anything creates heat by itself. And then you look at a compressor map, like I don't know if I was planning on here, but you look at a compressor map, you're gonna see these islands. It looks like these little oval shaped islands, and they have like a 0.7, 0.6, 0.56. That's how efficient it is. So that's the more inefficient you are, the more heat the friction of the wheel is adding to the actual heat, because you have heat that naturally occurs from just compressing something. That's going to happen. You can calculate that. And then you got to add the inefficiency of the friction of the wheel itself. There's a lot of like design, like how do we decrease the friction, or how can we compress air and not add extra heat into the heat that's naturally going to occur by simply compressing it. So there's a lot of technology in compressor wheels in that area.
So there's a ton of technology in the compressor wheel. There's a ton of technology in the turbine wheel, how it harvests energy. There's technology in the bearings. There's technology in the response of the turbo, sizing all that to make it work. And and then you got OEMs spending millions of dollars designing this stuff. And then we get in the aftermarket and we're like, I'm mechanic. We're like, let's put a big wheel on it and see what happens.
Make it bigger.
And guess what? Usually it works.
So, I mean, I guess 2 thoughts on that. First thought is like, I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, wow, like kind of going back to my thought of comm rails are so adjustable. They can work really well, but 12 valves, like, they're like a 12 valve is like 85% of perfectly tuned common rail. Like they just work. Like, how is this plunger pumping technology just working? And I got to think about it. I was like, well, the reason for it is because someone tried something and it didn't work, and then they tried again. And so it's kind of like the same thing with turbos. Like, yeah, we're dumb aftermarket that just puts bigger wheels in. Well, probably the first time we did it, it didn't work, and we tried it again. And that's where like there's 2 like ways of trying to size something like a turbo, for instance, is going through all the math and figuring out what the theoretical wheel sizes and all that stuff should be in order to get your turbo to work as good as possible. And then there's just trying it. Yeah. And so that's a lot of it is, yeah, you can use math and get close, but until you try it and you drive it and say, yeah, yes, this worked. No, it didn't. It's just concept. It's an idea.
Did you have to admit that's probably one of the best parts of working here is playing with like a new turbo and it works. You're just like, it's so cool.
And it's like, and it's not every time. It's like there's so many times. Like I used to get like heartbroken. I'm like, oh, dude, this is gonna do it. This is gonna be it. This is we're gonna make 100 horsepower on this. We're gonna patent it. And then you lose 50, and you're like, dang it.
Don't patent that one. Let that one go.
Back to the drawing board. That has happened so many times.
The other cool thing I think in the aftermarket with turbos in general, though, is let's say there's a patented extended tip technology one manufacturer has that, let's say Garrett can't do that because Borg-Warner will sue them. Well, in the aftermarket, as a small potatoes company, you can do all kinds of weird stuff, and Borg-Warner doesn't care if this guy, I mean, they might care, but you're not worth the lawsuit or whatever. And so what's cool is you can combine technology from all these companies in your little, obviously no one would infringe on a patent. We're not saying that, but I'm just saying you get to see all of this patented technology from all these companies, and maybe you think of combining them.
That's been done for a long time.
For years and years.
So my second thought I was going to add into that was all of our descriptions on turbos is great and all, but I think Jeremy Clarkson is the one that said it right the best. I think I
don't even know who that is.
From Top Gear, right?
Top Gear. Yep. I think the way he described it is exhaust goes in, it spins, witchcraft happens, and you go faster. And that's really all we need to know about turbos.
They are marvelous.
So Todd, you've been working on a bunch of new turbos for us. I mean, what's your favorite newest offering we have coming out right now?
Well, I'm a horsepower junkie, so I love that the new Aggressor 98 millimeter. And I've had that in my truck. I've been testing it for probably 6 to 8 months now because I really want to get a good test on it.
That's longer than that.
It's been over a year now.
I don't know. It's it's probably a long time, but it is. More people need that frame size charger than have it.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I feel like a lot of people, they just view us a 488 or something as like a big old charger. Like it's massive. Like, oh, you go any bigger than that, it's just, that's
stupid.
Race truck only.
No,
dude, no. Like your truck does like a huge testament to that. But like my shorty, I put one of those Aggressor 98s on it. It's got 467 Aggressor 98, and it's awesome. It's like making 1,200 horsepower is cool and all, but doing it freaking clean, like not a wisp out of the tailpipe, that's awesome.
Yes.
And just so when you have all that extra air, it's just great. It's marvelous. And on especially on a 6.7 Cummins,
I wish people had an idea of what a GT55 size of, a 500 frame charger with proper wheels is like. Best way I can feel is like, if you're in the S300 market, like, hey, I've been rocking an S362 for a long time, or a 369, it's ripping pretty good, and all of a sudden I put on an S400, I'm like, oh, this is like another life. that happens again with the 55. Like it's like a whole nother world of like acceleration, of RPM range.
Just it can raise the power.
I mean, if you're a Cummins guy, you start with the stock Charger and you upgrade to an S300 Borg, you're like, oh my gosh, this truck is amazing. And then above the S300, you go to an S400, you're like, mind is blown. What you're saying is when you go from S400 to S500 or
it's just as big a jump.
Garrett GT55, because they're a lot better than the Borg, arguably.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, that kind of frame technology I like a lot better. That's why we modeled it. But anyway, yeah, it's like again, you get this whole nother thing. And it does matter. Like you're not going to run this turbo as a single in anything other than a race truck.
Yeah.
Race truck guys all the time. It's actually probably the most common turbo used in race trucks is that 555 frame Charger with nitrous.
Yeah, for sure.
But on a street truck, you can still get away with it very, very well.
Yeah, and I feel like
in compounds.
In compounds, yeah. That's what I was gonna say is like in compounds, I feel like people, I don't know, they're just like they're afraid of that large of a charger, and I would have definitely thought that back in the day of like, oh, that's just a huge charger. I'm never gonna get that spinning. I'm gonna have to be at 4,000 RPM before it finally kicks in. Absolutely not.
Nope.
Like, I think we did a podcast on compound turbo sizing a while back, and I kind of like gave my thoughts on how to properly size. Like a spitball is you want to have the atmosphere charger about double the airflow capability of your manifold, and that's just a spitball,
right?
But how far can you take that? I remember before Power Driven started, you were specifically testing how big you could pair with the GT55, and what did you do?
I started with 2 GT55 106s paired with a 76 meter 102.
No, before that though, your initial testing on Frankenstein, your GT35. Tell us about that.
Oh, I ran a GT35 with a 106.
So you basically ran a 60 millimeter Charger that best case scenario would have could move 65 pounds a minute.
Yeah.
So you tripled the airflow.
And it worked well. It wasn't ideal. That's where you really start learning like the manifold charger does have a big effect on how much you can bring out of the big one, but it still just destroyed most anything anybody had ever been in.
But in like common day terms here, that would be like taking your stock HX35 on your 12 valve and compounding it with a 106 millimeter, the biggest GT55 they make.
Yeah.
And Todd tested that back. I mean, this is pre-Power Driven days. We're talking like 2012, 2013. Todd was messing with this. Back when we were friends and we were just like, he's like, check this out, Will. I'm like, whoa.
I remember talking about stuff I want to do on the forums like, that'll never work. You're an idiot. I'm like, man, I don't know how. I mean, I understand why you're saying that.
You would post about it, right? And people would ridicule you. Like, you're stupid.
Yeah, but Mike, tell me why it won't work using math. Because I can use math to tell you why it will work. You tell me why it can't work using math. Crickets. It was just they couldn't because it was just believed, right? It's like this is just what it is. Like no way can you put that bigger turbo with that turbo. It'll never work. Like mathematically it works, so I'm gonna see if it works in reality. And sure enough, it did. And so I mean, yes, did it make as much power as like my current 467 with that turbo? No, but it was still 1,000 horsepower capable.
So I was gonna follow that up and say that what does that be? I mean, that'd be one turbo revision ago on your tow truck Ruby. You had a HE351 6767 GT55. So that's also a very wide spread, and it ran good. Really, the problem, because that was externally gated, but just I don't know if it's just a problem with with the housing or whatever it is.
It was a stock mount manifold. On a stock. And this is before we did a good head on the thing.
Yeah,
but we were still touched 1,200 on a couple dynos, right?
I think it was
it's a
maybe
1,200,
12.
It made actually made 14 at KOS, but on our dyno it made like 1193 or something. Like it almost touched. I mean, it was fun. I mean, super torquey. I mean, as a 351 on a 6.7, like,
and that was fuel limited.
Yeah,
like, we had those. That was like the 100% at that point in time.
On our dyno, it had the 200s already, so it had the same size.
I don't think so. I don't think I put 200s on the bigger turbos.
Pretty confident you're wrong. Anyway,
I'm not wrong.
Anyway,
I was going to say fight, death match. You guys, you're just going to have to arm wrestle this out.
No,
to
because
see who's right.
Remember, you put the 467 GT55 like base charger on, and like right before we went for Kansas, and you're like, oh, this thing's awesome. And then we basically didn't dyno it ever. And then you went to the track, and you're like, okay, what does this setup actually make? You didn't actually change injectors between then.
It's been a minute.
Anyway, Anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But point being is like a 351 GT55 combo, like that's a very large spread, and it works fine. It was the problem with that setup is that on a 6.7, that 351's just a bit tight. It didn't rev out like the 467 could, and the 467 just, it's freer flowing. It felt like, it almost felt like the 351 was so tight. I almost felt it was like exhaust braking kind of a little bit all the time.
I always had what I considered an abnormally high amount of boost for any situation.
Oh, yeah. Any kind of grade, 20 pounds. Empty.
Yes.
Fuel economy suffered a little bit because it was a little choked up.
Yeah, with that whole big turbo, which, how would you choke it up? The reality is once that the 351 would make boost to where it made enough airflow for the big one to actually start working.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I'm behind a 15-liter engine. Let's rock and roll. I'm like, well, I don't want you coming in right yet, So it's kind of weird, like, to think about that. I don't want it coming in as early as it actually did. Like, I wanted my 55 to be slower.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how well it worked.
Yeah, and then we paired it with the 467,
and man,
that's a great setup.
Yeah.
And I think we said it before, like if you have a 68 truck where it's living life below 2,000, like towing and everything, it could probably be a bit better matched.
It would. This thing's 2,300 RPM is where this thing, like if I'm at 2,200, I'll drop 150 degrees going to 2,350.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all that difference in RPM is like, okay, now we're just really efficient. So if you're living below that, you probably don't want that setup, 467. Now you might want, I don't think it's 355. I think it's the 467.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is if a guy listening wanted a hot rod, let's say you had a 2006 Dodge, 2007, and you had a 6.7 engine in there, so you had a little bit more cubes. You're saying this 467 98 millimeter Aggressor, like you're running at 2,200 RPM when you're towing, as it goes to 2,300, EGT drops?
Yes. Always. Up any grade, always. Now, don't get me wrong. I have fine EGT control at 1,800. It works. You're
just saying it works so well that it actually drops temp as you
I'll
push
drop
it
150 degrees getting up to 23. And with my trailer, the load, sometimes I'm going up a steep hill. I'm like, I'm going to speed up a little bit so I can drop my EGT. And so I'll just,
it's like
most guys towing, they're like, I'm getting hot. I got to slow down. Todd's like, give it a little more throttle and get some more airflow.
And it's fun because as soon as that 55 comes in good, it's like you just watch that temperature just drop, like warm and drop. It's just so fun. It's amazing. One thing,
do you have no wastegates on that as well, right?
No, this is the simplest set.
So if you want a simple street setup, you're saying 467 Aggressor 98 on a 6.7 Cummins is fantastic.
1,500 horsepower proven.
1,500 wheel.
And that's what the Shorty has. It's so much fun. It's ridiculous.
That's why you built that system, because
I was like, dude, Ruby works great. I'm gonna do the same thing. So it's basically carbon copy.
Yeah,
it works outstandingly well.
You need to offer that kit to people because it should be on the street more than it is now. One thing about the 55 though is because it's so big. Talking about the Aggressor 98, is there's a lot of different varieties of this flavor charger. Other different companies offer it, different price points. There's journal bearing versus ball bearing. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to keep it ball bearing because it's so large. I wanted to have an affordable ball bearing option because I wanted to work well, not just a full throttle. And the ball bearings seem to just do, I like ball bearing everything, but on this turbo, I really want it because it is big. And the terminal is big, the compressor wheel is big.
And the journal bearing testing we have done is just it doesn't perform the same.
We have tried the same frame in journal bearings.
Yeah. And
they just don't make the power.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, they're not, I don't know why. Particularly, maybe it's not because it's journal bearing, but that particular model is not a good terminal design or compressor design.
The clearances have to be looser because of the journal and not such a big wheel.
Yeah, whatever it is, I just wanted a ball bearing.
But back when I started my performance journey, I was a poor college student, and then when I graduated in construction management during the 2008 downturn, there wasn't a lot of raises and promotions coming in construction management. It was like you were lucky to hold on to your job. And so that's what started, you could say, my performance career as a very money conscious consumer of parts. And so I was always looking for used big whole sets off of generators and locomotives and stuff. I never looked at a GT55. I saw the $5,000 price tag and I was like, I'm never going to be able to afford that. That's more than I paid for the truck times 2.
Yeah.
But and those carrots now are, by the time you get turbine housing, they're in the $6,000 range now. Mm-hmm. And what's great with technology is a lot of these big chargers are much more affordable.
And shameless plug, just saying right now we're in September, guys. And just so you know, we're having our sales month and all Aggressor turbos are 15% off. So if you want an affordable one, now's your day. Cause we're talking like,
they're dang near $2,000 for one right now on sale.
Now that's great for a ball bearing 55. So
you can't buy a Borg Warner S400 for that kind of money.
No, journal bearing S400 is more expensive than that. So anyway, sorry for this shameless plug, guys, but really, and we're giving them 10 turbos away this month too. So if you want to win some turbos, check it out. But we do love turbos. That's why I put them at 15% off because I want more turbos out in the world. But like I said, or like you're saying, they really are affordable.
And they're
one of the reasons that happens is the internet made this possible. I mean, I know a lot of you guys here were born since internet and didn't even know there was a time before internet, but there was a time before internet where everybody had to go. Yes, I know, Meyer. It's true. Phones used to hang on your wall.
Okay. Hold up. What? How is it like a cord? How do you scroll on that?
No scrolling on the phones that hang on your wall. But back then, all the companies had to have a distribution network, getting through multiple layers of distribution. And so one of the reasons that 400 is so expensive from Borg is they got to pay so many different people. Where now we can reach through like our podcasts and our YouTube channels. We can go right to the consumer. We have dealers, but not like layers upon layers of dealers. So we're able to just not add those costs.
So cut out 4 layers of distribution. That's 4 layers of markup.
Yeah.
And turbos are just.
And we're not the only ones. We're not the only ones who offer, there's other companies offer affordable stuff too. It's like I said, the internet has made this possible for multiple companies, ourselves being one of them. And so it's really pretty fun. But,
a perfect example of that, we have a new VGT turbo coming out.
Yes.
And these VGT, that's variable geometry technology turbo. This would be for like a 2007 and newer Dodge Ram. We can sell an upgraded one with billet actuator, all kinds of cool features. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit for the same price as a stock whole set you can get from the dealer.
Yeah.
In fact, maybe even so. One of the benefits of the aftermarket is you can get better bearings, better compressor wheels, better components for the same price as going to get another plain Jane stock one that's, going to fail in 80,000 miles like the last one did.
So yeah, it's true. So like the VGT63, this is something people have asked us. So we can kind of, go into this. So that's our new turbo for Dodge, like I said, 6.7 liter trucks that have the variable turbo. And they have an Achilles heel as bad as a 6-liter Ford is where they always fail. Those actuators always fail.
Mm-hmm.
The aftermarket ones are not much better, except for this. The aftermarket ones, not even aftermarket, it's just remanufactured stock ones. That's what they are. They offer remanufactured stock options. So it's really not better than the factory one.
Mm-hmm.
But we came across a company that sells a completely different unit. It's a whole billet body, different motor, different everything. And you've been running
made, designed.
Yep. And you've been running this on your truck.
Yeah.
Josh ran this thing on his truck pulling out to UCC and back.
Yep. We actually have quite a few test units out there, but like my truck's one of the original ones, and my truck's compounded. And so with I also like my exhaust brake hits, like I modified my turbo to make my exhaust brake hit even harder. And that was a kind of a mistake because it caused all sorts of issues, and that would fry the factory. I went through 3 genuine whole set actuators, and they'd last about 6 months and then they'd stop working. And so
now there's listeners that don't even know what an actuator is. So it's give us a little cliff notes, what it is and what it does on the turbo, the environment it has to live in.
Yeah. So the VGT turbos, variable geometry turbine, it's got a little lever in there. It's variable. So it's got a little lever, and there's an electronic motor that controls that lever. And so the electronic motor,
what does the lever do though? Guys don't even know.
The electronic motor changes the lever, and that's how the turbo goes from tight to where like fully tight's exhaust braking, and then all the way open is trying to make the exhaust housing as loose as possible to try to get the airflow out of the engine. So it's always in there.
So in the hot exhaust side, there's a series of blades in there that aren't the spinning blades. They're fixed blades, and
it's like a guide ring. I don't know how you call it exactly, but there's like a guide ring that basically it pinches down the exhaust. I guess that's what you really just need to know. It just pinches down the turbine housing. And so when it's fully tight, there's like 8 thousandths or 10 thousandths of gap between the two plates. So all your exhaust is having to go through that 10 thousandths gap. And that is how your exhaust brake works. It like really chokes it down. And then as you give it throttle, then it may open up to like 40% to where, you know, maybe it's a 200 thousandths gap. And then fully
they're
open
doing
like,
this to nozzle the exhaust to make it hit the turbine wheel.
Yep, you're trying to give the exhaust
faster.
energy. Yep, you're trying to give the exhaust energy. It's just like it's the same thing about putting your thumb over a garden hose. You know, if you have it wide open, it can get out easily, which is what you want at higher PM. You start putting your thumb over it, it starts creating more higher velocity. Doesn't flow as good. Yep, doesn't flow as good, but you get more energy there from the higher velocity, higher pressure, and so that helps like hit the turbine wheel harder at lower RPM. And then you freaking put your thumb all the way over it. Very little water is going to come out. That's your exhaust brake. And so that's what the electronic actuator is doing.
Factory designed turbo does that, but the actuator's controlling the arm.
And so it's just like super complicated CAN bus controlled actuator, and it's sitting in, obviously it's sitting next to a 1,000-degree turbine housing, and so they got it water cooled, trying to cool it off in there. It's just
so there's engine coolant going through the housing, trying to cool it.
Yep, it's kind of just a terrible environment to live in, and obviously there's all sorts of vibrations going on, and you can't have rubber in there, so it's like hard, like it's a very bad environment for an actuator to be, or any electronic component to try to survive in. And so yeah, the factory whole set actuator, it goes bad. And my truck is just an actuator killer because the compound's pretty, you know,
so there's more exhaust energy, more pressure.
So not only is there more heat because compounds, you got more piping, it's more surrounded. I mean, there's a downpipe that goes right past it. Like it's not a great environment, but also it's now, instead of operating from 0 to 30, 40 PSI in factory, like this thing's having to just operate and actuate in up to 70, 80, 90 pounds of dry pressure. And then exhaust braking, I modified the turbo so it actually exhaust brakes harder, which again, it was a mistake and it's not like that anymore. But I would go every like 6 months, I'd go through an actuator, and like I finally bought a brand new one because I was like taking takeoffs and stuff.
Just taking used
tried
core
that
ones.
one too, and I'm like, this is dumb. And so we went to this actuator, and it's been great. It's actually I don't know. It's been on there for a while, but I haven't had any issues. It lasts longer than any other actuator I had. And because my exhaust brake was so hard, it would want to stick on. Like the old whole set actuators weren't strong enough to release the exhaust brake above like 2,800 RPM. So, I mean, it's not hard to not do that, but you know, you get in a situation where it's at 3,000 RPM trying to exhaust brake. It was stuck on. You had to slow down to get it to come off and like sit there and pop the throttle, try to get it. Was kind of just irritating. Like I say, the mods aren't done anymore, but this aftermarket, like this billet one, was able to release it. I mean, I never tried any higher than like 3,200 RPM, but it still did it. So it's definitely stronger. It seems great. So so far it's been a great upgrade.
Yeah.
So that's one factor of this new PDD VGT63. But the other thing, you could talk a little bit about the turbine wheel and compressor, the differences versus...
There's a lot of different companies who offer upgraded turbos, factory turbos, us being one of them. And most of them, almost all of them, utilize a 70 by 67 turbine wheel. 70 is the largest you can put in that and still have the variable stuff fit. I mean, like our 351s have a 76 millimeter inducer on that turbine wheel. And you'll notice all the VGT ones have a 70 because it's the same turbine wheel. It's just you have to actually cut it more to fit in that turbo. So that's unfortunate. And most people will pair that with a 67 millimeter outlet, which is the same. We've used that on our 351s. And we actually like a little more trim. Trim is like the difference from the inlet turbine to the outlet of the turbine. And having that difference creates a little more pressure. And so Will's had a lot of experience with the 64 millimeter outlet on that turbine one. He's like, I'm telling you guys, it works really, really well. And that's why we did it in our HX35 as a 64. It's a 76 by 64. And it was a big difference in that turbine. And this housing on the 351 is big. If you open those vanes all the way, it's way lazy. Like it's not like the 351 9 centimeter housing.
Oh yeah.
It's big. And so with those factors in mind,
by design, because this is a 6.7 factory cubic inch engine, there's a lot of exhaust got to come out of that thing.
But we just wanted some more trim in that, and also to offer something unique. Almost everyone out there you're going to see is probably a 70 by 67. Pretty much every company does the same thing.
I mean, bigger is better, so throw bigger.
And we tried it, and we liked this one better.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I mean, we also live at high altitude here, so like any kind of small spool penalty you get at sea level, we get a way bigger spool penalty.
Yes.
And so like it almost sounds dumb to say like, oh, you have a factory frame size charger on a 6.7 and like you're worried about spool. Yeah, we are worried about spool. Like we tow 1500 RPM, whatever you're doing. If you put a big old turbo, a big old like 67 in there, we weren't seeing really any kind of power gains, but there's just a spool deficit. Like, why would you take that? And so maybe if you're at sea level, you may or may not notice, but up here, if you're towing over a mountain or something, it's very evident. And so, we're of course going to want something we'd want to drive.
Yeah. So we did go offer a little more trim on that turbine wheel than you'll normally see at other companies. I'm not saying right or wrong. I just wanted us to offer something different. And with a reason, there's a reason we did it. And we do like it. Like I see, Meyer has that, Josh has that, and a lot of testers have it. And we've been very, very happy with the results. Pretty standard 63 millimeter compressor wheel. That's pretty.
No, the stock one's 60.
Yeah.
So going to 63, you're getting more.
Yeah.
The hub's a little narrower.
Yeah.
So it's a little better aerodynamics.
It's billet, and so you can run better stuff. So it definitely makes more power in stock for sure. It's about as good an upgrade as you can get. The only difference from maybe the most powerful upgrade is that 67 turbine wheel versus our 64. Like I said, we did ours because I didn't see much of a power difference. Maybe at the high RPM where people don't really hang out with 68 speed, RFE trucks. And there definitely was a noticeable difference down low RPM. So that's the reason we went with that one, and we've been very happy with it. Yeah. But this leads to a question we've been asked a lot: like, do variable turbos work in compounds? Can they still work?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's basically a match made in heaven. They work great. I mean, whoever
if you have a good actuator,
you need a good actuator because you put more stress on it, and then whoever does your calibrations,
you do need to tune for it.
Do need to tune for it. But it works freaking awesome because once you get some airflow through it, we'll get some RPM going, whatever. Like the VGTs can just open up, and it's basically like wastegating. But when you have exhaust that goes through a wastegate, it's kind of wasted energy. Like, you have a pressure differential across your wastegate, and if you calculate at the flow and the pressure, that's just wasted. Like, it did nothing. By loosening up the VGT, now you just have all the exhaust do a little bit less work, and so it works really, really well. And then, like, say if you compounded with a 480 or something, once you get above call it 2000, 2200 RPM, you can just have the vanes open for the most part, and the whole combo is super high flowing, but also doesn't make crazy boosts. That's one of my favorite things. I was talking to a couple different people, and one in particular that has a similar setup, but his doesn't sound to me like his tuning is well set up for what he's doing, because he's got a VGT 480 very similar to mine, but he's like, oh yeah, it tows great, but boost is just really high. Like, it's making, pulling grades at 70 pounds of boost. And I'm like, so his issue is there's no boots that'll survive. I was like, first of all, try some PDD ones. Second of all, I was like, now it sounds like your problem is that's way too much boost. I was like, my tow tune makes ballpark, and it's been a minute, 700 horse, let's call it. That's at 36 pounds of boost. It doesn't need more than that. And drive, 36 pounds of drive.
Now, I'm not trying to plug the cylinder head, but
it does have
a nice cylinder head on it. It's got more stage 2 street heads on there. So
it does
you're
have that.
going to make less boost at that power level. But obviously the tuning is a big part of it, but it's not all of it. There is some other.
There's that. And I did tell that guy, but I'm like, 70 pounds. That's a lot. I remember some guy borrowed my truck, and there's a factory boost gauge on the CTS3 or whatever, and he drove it to Home Depot or something, and he's like, is the boost gauge, is that interstage? And I was like, no, that's total. He's like, what? He's like, it was going, and it made 25 pounds. I was like, it's pretty dope, isn't it? Yeah. So anyway, and that's another thing with a good tow truck is being able to open the vanes and keep the boost dry pressure. I mean, if I'm between call it 1500 and 2400, boost to drive is 1-to-1, and just does that at all situations. And that's just that VGT working. That's such a wide RPM band, and you can go higher than that. Sure. And it's fine. Drive will be a little bit higher, and it is what it is.
That happens with all turbos.
It happens. But the fact that you have such 1500 RPM, it can tow at, actually I've towed at 1400, making 20 pounds. It sounds like bad noises, but it is what it is. But 1400 to 2300, and it'll do so much wider. And with the VGT, I mean, 28 3000, it'll tow just fine there. That's such a freaking wide RPM band.
Yeah, it's huge.
In a diesel, you drive a 48 truck, you have one gear. You have one gear option. If you want downshift, you probably need to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
When you have an RPM band that goes from 1400 to 3000 or 2800 that you're very willing to tow in, you have 3 gears in a 68 truck that you can pick between. that just all the pieces coming together, making that happen. Yeah, it's a match made in heaven. They work so good.
Now, if you were giving someone advice that they need to tell their tuner, basically they need to open the vanes up more as they get around 2,000 RPM if you're going to tow with compounds with a VGT.
I'm not professional in any sense, but yes, like once you get above a certain load at a certain RPM, just open the vanes up. Your atmosphere charger's singing, like let it sing. Like that would be my recommendation. Now, if you get too loose, your boost drops, your EGT might go up a little bit. You might have to, try a little trial and error there. But yeah, just open, like once you're above, I want to say 2,200 RPM and call it 300-400 horsepower worth of fuel, open that thing up. Like
now, as far as the big turbo sizing, you're running a PDD Aggressor 80.
Yep, it's one of our 80s.
Would you go smaller if somebody didn't want as much power? Or does it work so well that you love it?
So freaking well. I don't know if I could.
On that 6.7, they can just make big turbos work.
I think, you could try like a 475 or something like that. Are you
running a 115 housing or
115? Yeah, you could run like a 475, but I'm like, the idea with a smaller compressors, that'd be a little faster responding and whatever, but you're going to lose some up top. I wouldn't want to give up any 3,000 RPM performance because I have nothing to gain down low. I'm very happy with, I could say, the only reason I can't tow at 1,400, like at more than 20 pounds of boost is because it just makes noises I don't like. Like
the turbos are fine.
It's working the drive shafts and the rear end and the trans so hard. You just feel like you're.
I think I figured it out. I think my cab's flexing over and hitting my air dog, and so I dropped my air dog down a little bit. Maybe that'll help. But it's like there's some kind of
so much torque. It twists the cab into the air dog.
It like makes like under my feet. It makes like a clapping sound over. I don't know, over like. At 1,400 RPM, it's about above like 20 pounds of boost, but at normal RPM, it's above like 38, 40. So my tow tune, which makes 36, never hits it, but you try to tow in the bigger tunes, like, yeah, it makes noises. I'm like, this is weird. So that's why the tow tune's set where it is.
All right, fair enough.
But yeah.
So there's bound to be people listening. They hear talk about this VGT. So why don't the Ford Power Stroke turbos have trouble with they're a VNT, a variable nozzle technology, right?
Which is, but it's still referred to as a VGT, but the VNT and VGT on those are used interchangeably.
So VGT is whole set, VNT is Garrett.
Well, Grok disagrees.
Grok's wrong. I have won against Grok before. I will do it again. Well, you want to see a showdown. That was like 30 minutes of arguing with AI. It was pretty great.
The technology is different, but they're both in the family of VGT.
Yes.
But the technology that Gary uses is VNT. Mm-hmm. Now, you have some pretty strong feelings about this because which one is the superior technology?
If you want an amazing working exhaust brake, VGT is superior.
Yeah, your exhaust brake is stupid good.
And it's just factory. Like even factory exhaust brakes are just so much better. VNT, I think, is far more efficient. But they just don't exhaust brake as hard. And so my guess would be that's why Wholeset did what they did, is because it's a work truck. They want that great exhaust
Ford's
brake.
using oil to control theirs, right? They're not using any kind of electric actuator.
Way simpler.
Yes, and that's where, so again, that's like the advantage versus disadvantage. Wholeset, Dodge, Cummins.
So we're kind of moving over to 6.0 Power Strokes for a minute while guys that's the turbo we're talking about, right?
Yes, which we also released 2 of those on the website, shameless plug for PowerDriven.com. Is we have a 62 millimeter and a 65 millimeter for the drop-ins for the Fords. And I'm really excited about that because that 65 I had on my wife's truck and it was super fun. And so we've now got parts in stock. We're offering those to the world now, not just my personal truck. And they are very fun. But the VNT is interesting.
Yes, like I say, I think as a whole, I think a VGT. If you look at normal housing, it is catered to one area. Like it works well everywhere, but it's a fixed housing. That means it works really good in one area and works okay everywhere else.
Yeah.
What's awesome about VGT is that it's variable. So now instead of having it work in one area, you can move it around and say like, oh, we want tighter, we want looser. And so it works good in every area. Not great, just good. VNT, so the VGT is, I don't say it's not super efficient. Just the design of it, the way they're nozzling it down, it's not extremely efficient. It works great because you can move that efficiency island around.
And a VGT's crushing the width with that moving ring, and the VNT
has like little nozzles
it's turning the angle of the fins.
And so because the nozzle and they're pinching against each other, so it's also like pinching them down, but the way it's directing it, instead of just pinching off and only actuating on part of the turbine wheel, it's still utilizing this full width of the turbine wheel. I don't know if that has something to do with it. Just my way my brain's working, it says that that's probably part of it. But the VNT is, I would say, a bit more efficient. Like you can get better efficiency numbers from your turbine. You can harness more energy out of your exhaust, but the exhaust brake just doesn't hit the same way. And so that's just kind of the way of it.
But as far as the actuation, they're using oil.
Oh, and that's why they're so much more reliable, is because, like, so again, whole set, Dodge, Cummins, whatever, they have this full-on computer on the side of the turbo. Like, it's CAN bus controlled. So the ECM's throwing digital signals at this thing, and it's like strapping a laptop to the side of your computer, or side of your turbo. Like, it's a terrible environment for it. But what's nice about it is it's very smart. It knows exactly where the turbo is. The ECM can say, okay, I want you to be at 50%. Actuator is like, okay, we're there. Cool. Got it. Handshake. We're great. Whereas a VNT, like a 6.0 turbo, it's just a solenoid. And so the ECM says, well, it seems like we're a little loose right now. We should tighten it up a little bit. And then it does it. I'm like, oh, that seems like we're a little far. Let's go back a little bit. That's all. It throws a power signal at a solenoid. And it says like, oh, it seems like we're a little tight. We don't know where we are, but based on whatever, it seems like we're a little tight. It seems like we're a little loose. And so the VNT 6.0 turbo is a lot more dumb. And so,
but
with dumb is
the turbo's not dumb. It's a computer's dumb, because that turbo has capacity for a position
turbo
sensor.
Sure. Either way, the turbo is dumb, and maybe it can shove the information back to the ECM.
Yeah, all right, fair.
But yes, it's not necessarily bad. It's simple, and keeping it simple,
keeps it working.
And so it's not bad. It's just
not as susceptible to heat damage.
They never fail. They're
they're in the valley of the engine. It's arguably a very hot spot.
It's a terrible spot to be in. They work great.
Yes, they don't fail. And because of that system, they're remarkably less expensive than the Dodge one. That actuator is so expensive. The one we chose to go with, that it's just very expensive. Where the Ford stuff is so much less expensive.
In fact, it's a little bit less than half the cost of a nice VGT.
For the Dodge versus the Ford, guys, it's very true. Like you're paying less than half because of that. Because like you said, there's a laptop on the side of your turbo. I mean that's not cheap, guys.
It's be a pretty industrial grade laptop.
Yes, it's got to be able to. Yeah, and so with that comes costs, but I mean, it is drop in, and that's the options we have, and they're great. But the Ford one, or the Garrett, actually it's the Garrett one that Ford uses. Duramax uses that too, at least they did in the past. I'm not sure what their current stuff is.
Yeah, I don't know that much, so I
haven't really followed the brand new stuff, but I don't think the Duramax stuff was the same technology for a long time. It's Garrett, VNT. And so it's pretty proven also in the Valley.
So back to these PDD turbos, because I didn't hear a lot of the data on them. Stock, how big
There's
roughly?
A couple different.
Because there's an 03 and then an 04
there's like
through.
The biggest turbine wheels in the early ones. It's like a 66 millimeter exducer on the turbine, and that's what we put in our 62 millimeter. Our introduction is the same turbine wheel that came on the early Fords, and a lot of people felt that was too large. I mean, just I think some tuning could really fix all those issues. But and then they dropped down, like I think it's 05. They dropped the turbine wheel size down, and I forget what the numbers are, but it was smaller. And so our first turbo has the same turbine wheel basically size-wise as the original. And then
but it's got a little bigger compressor because it's got that
62, and it's a 7x7, which means it's a split blade. And the bigger one's a 65 with a 68 millimeter exducer on the turbine wheel. It's a little bit bigger there again. And I've been really, really, really happy with them. They work really well. This is one of those times though that I did have a very interesting experience when I had a KC Stage 2 on my wife's excursion that I took off to put on this 65, which is a little bit bigger. It's a little bit bigger. The turbine wheel's a little bit bigger, the compressor bigger, so it's not apples to apples at all. But it was just a very interesting learning experience when I put this on. It was a dog. I was like, man, this thing is like taking forever to get going. I was like, man, this is a loser turbo. And I started looking at data logs. I'm like, it was because like what you were saying earlier, the computer's saying we want such and such back pressure. And we're going to just kind of tell you to go here, tell you to go there. And it gives you a duty cycle on that solenoid. And so what I was finding is like, it was commanding a very high duty cycle, meaning it was really closing the nozzles, trying to create this pressure. So
trying to create back pressure with the bigger turbo.
The turbine wheel was larger, so the turbine wheel wasn't able to do it. So it was trying to do it with the vanes. I was like, I knew from past experience that anything like under or over 65% is like dang near exhaust braking on these turbos. So I redid the tune to whereas back to where, 65% or so as I'm rolling into it, and then it kind of goes down to 50s. And all of a sudden it was as good as the KC Stage 2. Now I had done some other mods as well during this time. So it's not true apples to apples. I imagine the Stage 2 would be a little quicker because it's smaller wheels. But as far as my experience it was quicker, but I really tuned in this turbo. So, I mean, again, it's just like me tuning a turbo on my truck. You can really kind of dial it in.
Yeah. And
so, but I was just shocked. I was like, I can't believe like the tune for the Stage 2 was terrible for this turbo because it was just the vanes were too tight. I had to command even less pressure, which opened it up, which made it spool way faster. So understanding how to tune the forward turbos is huge. I don't know. I mean, in the near future, we're gonna spend a lot of time trying to help guys figure out here's what you need to be looking for. I don't know how much of it's out there, and obviously a lot of people are depending on their tuner to do it, which is fine. Just want to make sure the tuners are aware of what you're getting and how. I don't know if they haven't personally had your turbo in a truck with them. It's going to be hard for me to think it's perfect. Which anytime you hire a tuner, it's not perfect because they've got to give you the best they can, not having the truck being in the truck, right? And that's understandable, but they can get very, very close. A good tuner gets very, very close. But they wouldn't have in this one because this is a totally new turbo that really hasn't been in the market. And I'm like, so anyway, watching your VNT, your duty cycle of your solenoid is a big deal. Because if you're like 75, 80% from like, as you roll into it from a stop and you give it gas, it goes to 80, it's like, you're actually hurting your performance. It's making you go slower because you're, like you said, you're driving through the exhaust brake.
Yeah.
Doesn't work very good.
And it's the same thing you played with, in the Dodges. If you tighten it down too much, it makes boost and makes you feel good, but the truck actually
moves slower.
As a tuner, you're like, wow, my boost gauge is going up. This is the fastest acceleration. No, somewhere between exhaust brake and no boost is actually the fastest spool up acceleration.
Yeah,
ramp.
when I was doing, I think I've said this before, but when I was doing like spool up testing, trying to like nail down like this is way back when, nail down like the just timings, and more specifically, I was trying to dial in the VGT and like see what percentage I wanted. And so at first I was using boost as a metric. Like, okay, I'd flat foot it from a stop and how fast did I hit 10 pounds of boost? And I'm like, oh, and I figured out like, okay, it wants this vane position to be able to hit 10 pounds of boost. And then I kind of just like, I drove it and I was like, it doesn't feel as good as it should be. Like, there's no way this is the best as there is. It just feels like sluggish. And I realized I was being dumb. I'm like, I don't care. Like when you're driving your truck around, you don't care what boost is. You care how fast you get to, X mile an hour. And so I realized I was being dumb. I looked at my data logs and as boost was going up quicker and quicker, my RPM was taking longer and longer to get there. And so I was actually going slower and slower the more I tightened it up. But like, oh, boost is going up faster. Cool. That's what matters. No, it's not what matters.
So what you proved is if you close the vanes down on either turbo, whole set, VGT stuff, or like a Garrett VNT,
you get like borderline exhaust braking. Cool, you made boost, you got your 10 pounds of boost faster, but you slowed down your truck.
Yeah, and I experienced the exact same thing. And also Ford versus Dodge, the same thing happens on compounds. I put this turbo in compounds, and once that we had the 480 in it, and once the turbos come up, the vane's wide open. Like it's trying to drop pressure because it's getting that with the compounds, you have so much more volume of air in and exhaust out. The computer's like, man, we're trying to drop pressure. It just opens the vanes just like you did. And it works great. It just lets the air flow through it, or the exhaust flow through it, go right to that 480, which is doing the work now, and just freaking rips. And so, it's the same type thing. Once you get the big one going, let it do the work. Let that air get through your small one's still going to compound. It's still doing some work, but don't choke it up there. Let it through. And that big one does the work, and your thing freaking rips.
And truth be told, not to bring the junker drag truck artificially in, I'm not. When I was racing that, I had a 351 VGT with this big whole set, unobtainium HT4B turbo. And I noticed the more I wastegated, the more mile per hour my truck could do at the end of the track, meaning once you get stuff going, you need to get that little turbo out of the way and let the big one do the work, and it'll go faster. In my case, it made more power. Same thing, you guys. So it's proven fixed geometry, variable geometry, anything in compounds. If you can kind of get the little turbo out of the way, once the big ones are really going, it seems to usually work better.
This will call into question our other conversation where Meyer and I are both using a 467 98 millimeter, and neither one of us is getting the small one out of the way. I will say, I do know I'm leaving power on the table.
Yeah.
Top end power. I know I am. But there is something to be said when you have fixed turbos to have something simple. Wastegates, if it's a non-wastegated turbo from the factory, you're doing external wastegates, and all those things require maintenance and piping and all kinds of stuff. And so I'm consciously making this decision because I did build this to be a tow truck. So yes, am I leaving power on the table the way I've built this compound turbo system? Absolutely. Is it worth it to me for I'm doing the truck? Yes, because I can still do 1,500 horsepower. So it's okay on a street truck.
Yeah.
And then if a guy's wondering how much power are you leaving on the table? Well, we've played with that same turbo with a 80 millimeter 480 as the small turbo. And we know it makes mid 1,700 horsepower. So you could arguably say that you're leaving maybe 250 horsepower on the table, but your drivability is so much better with that 467. You would never even think of putting a 480 on your tow truck and place that 467.
And the way I sometimes do think about it because I'm just by nature power junkie, but I never let myself do it because it works so good for the 99% of the time I'm driving it. The 1% where I want more than 1,500, not even 1%, the 0.1% of the time where I want more than 1,500 horsepower out of this truck, it's not worth the loss of just the maintenance, the extra maintenance and fabbing and piping and getting that all to work in.
Yeah,
yes, leak points. Exactly.
I'm in the same way. And this isn't even my tow truck. This is the shorty. Like, it's just my fun street truck. And I'm like, do I need more? Like, at some point, I'm sure I'll cross that bridge, undoubtedly. But for now, I'm like, this thing's awesome.
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
It works good. It's simple. So there's both. There's argument for both ways. But with a variable turbo, you just have it. It's there. There's no leak points. Like if I could put a variable turbo in place of that 467, that'd be interesting.
Oh, man. It would be
but it need to be bigger. I wouldn't. There's nothing. Like a larger one. I wouldn't, and I probably wouldn't do the VGT. I'd probably want a VNT type.
I wonder
technology.
how a 12 valve would run with a VNT on it, because you get the variable and the spool and
they run great. More on that
later.
Foreshadowing. Wait, so you can put a Ford turbo on a Dodge and control it?
It's been done. People have done it.
Sounds like a Ford.
Oh,
it's so good.
Like if you bring one of your Ford buddies by and you have a Ford turbo on your 12 valve and you've got it and you can mess with the tuning on it, they'll be like, did a power stroke pull up? Because you can sit there and make it whistle. It's pretty cool.
It is. But yeah, that's a long foreshadow. Anyway, turbos are super fun. I've always loved them. And again, like this month, you can save hundreds of dollars if you're in the market for a turbo. Literally on the hundreds of dollars on turbos, because say 15% off is huge, and we're giving 10 away. You might win that turbo back. So if you're listening to this in September and you have a need of turbo or parts, any parts really, you can actually win a turbo. So best of luck to whoever. 10 winners this month. It's gonna be super fun. And yeah, man, turbos are fun. VGT, VNT, they do work in compounds. People have asked us that. They work really well.
Great.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, I don't think I would change anything about my setup right now. Like, it just works.
I think the title of this podcast should be, do VGT turbos work in compounds? Absolutely they do.
Yes, they work really well. And you stick your exhaust brake to boot, still works.
Yeah.
Does not affect that at all. You get it just as strong with the compounds or without.
Yeah. It works so great.
Yeah.
Compounds. Am I right?
I don't know how many times we've said it on this podcast, but we do like compounds here at Power Driven Diesel. I feel like every truck should have them. It's just, they can take it. There's so much overhead in these engines. A
perfect example. There was this influencer that was here last week, Drifts and Lifts, and he drifts Volvos. He's very famous for that, but he has a 12-valve truck that he drifted a few years ago. He's like, yeah, I'm going to put it back together, and I was thinking of running this big single turbo, and we're like, hold that thought a minute. How about you take a ride in a compound turbo truck? He comes back from the ride with Meyer, and he's just like, I need compounds.
Yeah.
He's like, that is the most powerful vehicle I've ever been in my entire life.
I haven't ripped that truck a lot, like hard like that. And so I was in 4-wheel drive and I got into it and I heard tires screech. And I was like, it's not on 4-wheel drive. And I checked down. I was like, no, it's 4-wheel drive. And I did it again. I'm like, oh man, it's like blowing them off way too easy. And then I did it. I was like, I started thinking about it. I was like, there's no way it's hooking up that well in two-wheel drive. And so I did it again. And yeah, for sure, it's all 4. It's just, not even like boosted launch, just like rolling in, just in seconds.
That lightweight
it was so much fun.
But the answer is yes. Compounds are awesome. We recommend them for anybody in pretty much any application.
And if you have any kind of hot street truck, really think about getting rid of that 480 you have and putting a 98 millimeter, because we have a guy who 2 years ago I drag raced him at dirt drags at this event in Richfield, the industrial injection or whatever.
Diesels in the mountains, what they call that event.
And he had a 488 and he raced me, and we saw him in Montana recently. He's replaced that with a 500 frame Charger. These bugs, like, I was waiting for you to get yours because I told him we're making one. I'm like, So he had a different version, a journal bearing version, but he's like, yeah, man, this is so much better, so much better. And it just is. If you have a hot truck, 480s were the play. They no longer are.
I don't know any person that's upgraded from a big S400 in their compounds to a GT55 that's regretted it. My street truck has a big GT55 and it runs phenomenal. The big difference, I used to run a 351 480 setup on it, and then I had our towing compounds on it. And the big difference is, before, when the whole engine would sign off at 2,500 and start kind of laying over 3,000, now it just keeps pulling harder and harder and harder, and it never quits.
Yeah.
Does it have any? There's no downside. It doesn't. I guess the coolest thing though, that might be a downside to some people, when you shut the truck off with a ball bearing, you can hear that turbo spin for a minute, which I think is freaking cool.
Down for you can audibly hear it for 30 seconds, even
you hear it just winding down, and you're like, that is so cool.
So slow. It just sits there and hums.
But if you're the type of guy that doesn't like to hear your truck hum after you shut it off,
you're an idiot.
That would be the downside.
Wow.
It's totally awesome. You should listen to it. Just I love that thing. Every time I shut my truck off, I just sit there for a couple of seconds. I walk inside the door and it's still spinning, but I do listen to it for a couple of seconds, and it's just I love that thing. Then I walk inside and it's still spinning.
And then sometimes you'll pull the filter off. Is it really spinning? Yep, that's what the noise is. You put it back on.
Yeah, it's awesome. So
no way that's still spinning.
They're amazing. Yep. Ball bearing turbos for the win. Do love ball bearing turbos. And anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think it's going to wrap this up. Again, I do want to just say, we're giving 10 turbos away in the month of September. So if you hear this in September, go to powergym.com. Every $100 you spend is an entry to win. You can win one of 10 turbos, save a ton of money on lots of parts. And thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the Power Gym Podcast.
Thanks, guys.